When people talk about their favourite Nintendo 64 games, the opinions you get are typically pretty similar. You got your Mario 64, Mario Kart, GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, and I don't know, Shadow Man. It's pretty sweet, I guess. My favourite is Hybrid Heaven. If you were alive and a video game fan in 1998, you would have heard about or played Metal Gear Solid, a real flex by Konami and PlayStation, that one. Fully voiced, highly cinematic, and some other cool stuff. Then Hybrid Heaven appears. It seemed like the 64 was getting something of a similar vibe to Metal Gear, also made by Konami. Could this be a concurrent series they'll make on Nintendo consoles as an alternative to Metal Gear? It's pretty exciting. So the game opens on a shirtless man watching a news report talking about the president having a meeting with Russia. Then he gets up and we get to see him have a shower. Someone comes to the door and starts talking about a substitution of the president and some sort of invasion, and a Mr. Diaz will assist him. Treason? Question mark?
Put some clothes on, will you?
He also tells this guy to act like a human, implying this man is not a human, I suppose? So then the naked weirdo walks away and some gal leaves a message asking for a Johnny.
Johnny, are you there?
And talking about how they had a pact to meet under the Christmas tree. Probably the girl in the photo, because I always keep photos of people who call me next to my phone. We now see the woman who was in the picture frame at a subway standing around, and we also see a dude with some Secret Service who is being referred to as Mr. Diaz. Then we see this supposed Johnny fella walking down the stairs just like a normal human would, and walks right on past the girl.
Johnny?
Diaz pulls a gun on Johnny sideways and shoots him. Johnny then proceeds to evaporate or explode. So then Johnny evaposplodes and Diaz has a good long look at the woman. The Secret Service drag him away and get on an elevator saying they gotta get him back below ground. Big schmoz on the elevator here. Diaz starts getting those cinematic ear-ringing things that only happens to main characters and falls, but then is luckily saved by some sort of technology. So this is where the actual game starts. So here we go. The game itself. Is it like Metal Gear? At first you might think so, just from the fact that you're in some sort of base getting past security measures. Good thing you come equipped with this little spooter thing to defuse them. The first dude you encounter says, "G'day Mr. Diaz, take this code key, you'll need it." Boy, is he correct on that one, because the way you get to the next section of where you're at pretty much every time involves finding a machine to update your code key, then finding the code key door, then, now that you've updated your code key, the door will now open and you can move on. I sure do hope you're okay with this system, because if you like the idea of updating an access card at least 22 times, you're in luck. You know, the whole card key thing, we're not straying too far from Metal Gear here still, so that's good. Pretty soon you come across this thing here that gives you a scan and opens up. After Diaz gives the machine a little tickle here, it goes crazy and an alarm goes off. What have we done here? A guy comes running up to you and says, "Just what the bloody hell's going on here? Someone's opened up the cells storing the bioweapons and unlocked the security system. I was 5 minutes away from finishing my shift. This is bullshit." Then, in a moment that was genuinely scary to me as a kid, he gets stabbed from behind from this guy here. So Mr. Prolapse here must be one of those bioweapons that you unlocked earlier, Monster Tango. This is where any thoughts of, is this like Metal Gear, flies out the window. The battle system in this game, it's out there. If you get a kick out of games that have, if nothing else, original and different ideas, then this battle system will make you Metal Gear Solid as a rock. Hybrid Heaven has a turn-based RPG/wrestling/fighting game hybrid battle system, and this is how it works. You and your opponent put your dukes up. You still have control here. You can move around like a fighter would, shuffling around left and right, back and forward, while still facing the enemy. You can also turn around and run if you want some distance. There is a power meter that fills up at the top of the screen. The less you're moving, the faster it fills up. This determines, unsurprisingly, the power of your attacks. To begin with, you can only do one fully charged attack. Press A and a menu pops up, item or attack. Choose attack, and from there is punch or kick. Then in those menus are a selection of, as you might assume, punches and kicks. Low kicks, high kicks, middle punch, uppercuts, etc. Select one and you'll do it. Higher power meter, more damage. The next bar down is stamina, which is expended by doing moves or running, and I think it also plays a factor in how powerful your blows are, but I'm not 100%. In a regular playthrough though, the stamina bar doesn't really matter that much. Below that is your health, and there's also a visual representation of that on the left. Now of course the enemy can give you the old left right goodnight as well. When they're about to attack you get a warning and a different menu pops up. This time you have to choose how you're going to react: guard, step or counter. These all have a chance to succeed or fail. Guard makes you take less damage, step gives you the option to take a step in a direction to avoid the attack completely, and counter doesn't fucking work. The enemies have these three options when you attack them as well, so if you don't look out you might be on the receiving end of a vicious step. Besides punching and kicking, there is one more style of attack you can inflict. If you press the R button, you'll grapple with the enemy. Press A from this position, and the attack menu now, instead of punch and kick, has technique. From here you can do full-blown judo and pro wrestling moves. This takes the battle system from weird to insane. And I know I said this is a RPG / wrestling / fighting game hybrid, but I'll come back to that part of it later. Once you've absolutely laid out this blueberry, you escape the section where the alarm is going off and end up in the area it seems that the bioweapons were released from. The guy you run into here says, "Yeah mate, I know, everything's a bit crazy at the moment. All the yucky monsters have escaped." Then he calls you tough, which is nice, and you can take a nice long look at some of the freaks that didn't escape, like this sad frog and inside-out goat. As you move on through the facility, you'll encounter some more fights, and you got to be careful because enemies can get the jump on you like this stack of salami hiding on the roof. Even this nerd picks a fight with you because apparently there's a warrant out for your arrest due to you releasing all those bioweapons and, you know, murdering that guy at the subway station in front of 3 people. This game also has platforming because Konami just took all game mechanics and threw them in a NutriBullet, I suppose. Sometimes you got to jump up stuff, jump down stuff, and jump across stuff. But it's really not a big deal, and it isn't the gameplay I think of when I do think about this game, which is often. The way you move in this game has a real Prince of Persia feel, if that makes sense. It has those big long forwards and those long up verticals. So this is what you do when you're not spooting a water pistol at robots or MMA fighting aliens. Pretty soon you come across this glowing dinosaur. This is the first boss encounter. He looks fairly menacing. Fortunately he isn't quite as scary as he seems. It's not like he's immune to judo. I should also mention the music in this game is 90% ambient noise, but the boss battle theme is actually pretty cool. It's got trumpets. After you Ice Age Dino here, some coward bonks you on the head from behind and knocks you out. You wake up to him and some other lads going on about how they're disappointed in you and you shouldn't have shot that guy, and what about the presidential substitute? What about it, mate? Anyway, this guy says the idea of ruling the world turns him on. Gross. And they chuck you into a tube full of Gatorade. The next part of the game is so cemented in my brain, it'll never leave. You encounter some weird looking dude with some Joker kind of vibes, and he's going to use you as a guinea pig. To put it plainly, the next section, you have to run away from this big HR Giga monster while trying to avoid him running into you, which is intermittently broken up with a few sections where you got to take a bridge suplex from a swamp monster. Pretty straightforward. I was pretty young when I first played this game, and I don't think I'd ever played anything remotely horror-esque or seen any scary movies yet. If you watch Space Jam in the morning and then the next thing you do that day is run away from this thing, it leaves an impression on you. So even now, as soon as I have to start running away from this thing, my heart rate skyrockets. After you run a bit more and take a legit jumping DDT from a Goosebumps monster, you get to the end of the chase and it's shot in this pretty cool cinematic angle here. A chunk of the wall blasts away and someone's like, "Get in here, mate." This is where the game gives you some actual explanation of what's going on and the actual story of the game, and it's okay, but it's a bit, huh? So on the other side, you meet this thing, and they say they're a member of a race of aliens known as the Gargantuans. And I don't know if this was someone at Konami's idea of irony, but I don't like it. You know, because they're all small, and Gargantuan usually means big, you know what I mean? It's like calling the big guy at the gym tiny, you know? If that was the intended joke, I don't like it, alright? If it's not a joke and that's just what they decided to call them, then I guess that's okay. Could have used any other word. Could have made up a word. It's an alien. Anyway, so he tells you that you are in fact Johnny Slater, a Secret Service agent to the President. You know, that guy you shot at the beginning. The Johnny Slater that you shot was a clone of you, and now you're in this Diaz guy's body. He says that him and the other Gargantuans were zooming around in space in some sort of sleep state, but there was a traitor who kept them all asleep and started making some human race clones. When they all woke up from their space naps, this traitor was now their leader or something. You know, he did it all under their nose while they were sleeping. That's the whole idea there. And now this bad apple is using all these clones or hybrids to replace the human race and take over Earth, to create some sort of hybrid heaven. He takes you back to his other little buddies to explain that they'll change you back to your original form now, and that they nab that Diaz fella to make their own clone of him, and they put you inside that clone. And you're only put in Diaz's body because you were going to be killed and replaced by a clone due to being a Secret Service agent that has access to the President, and your amnesia was a byproduct of the swapsies. They put some device in your brain so that you would sabotage the enemy's plan under the guise of being Diaz, and then they put you in some more Gatorade and change you back into Johnny. It's a lot to digest. As they're doing this, that chubby bastard bursts in, whose name is Jerry, by the way, and he's basically like, whoa, what the hell is going on here, huh? And then proceeds to bust up the joint. Luckily, the Diaz to Johnny metamorphosis is complete, and you escape through what is probably an alien sewerage hole. The last fleeting comparison to Metal Gear Solid is this body swap. In a real Konami move, you switch characters after about a quarter of the game, and now in a big swerve, you play as this person for the remainder. A real Snake to Raiden move here. Jumping back to the battle system for a moment, you might think to yourself, where do I learn more maneuvers? Surely it's not just low kicks and high kicks. Well, you learn moves as they're performed on you. You have a chance to anyway. It doesn't happen every time an enemy hits you with a move you don't know, but sometimes it does. You'll see that you've learned the move when it shifts up towards your status and health bars. I think your chance to learn it is also dependent on your stats, because this is an RPG after all, sort of, so you do have stats. You have two sets of things you can level up. The first is the defensive and offensive power of your limbs, body and head. You punch more with your right arm gets stronger. You get dropped on your head a lot, your head gets better defense. The other stats you have are just like your base stats, which you just level up as you win fights like any other standard RPG. A cool feature this game has that people might miss is your fighting stance. At the very start of the game you have a fairly neutral stance, but as you get into more battles and use particular kind of moves, your stance will change to one of 3 different ones depending on what you're actually using, be it punches, kicks or grapple moves. So my playthrough for this, I use mostly punches, so Johnny has now taken on a stance that kind of looks like a boxer. On previous playthroughs where I've used a lot of kicks, he takes on more of like a Muay Thai stance where his arms are up high and his knee is raised a bit. I have no idea what the wrestling stance is, if there even is one, because some enemies are immune to being grabbed, so you have to use punches and kicks in the game at some point. And if you just grapple the whole game, and then you have to fight something, you have to punch it, so you're going to be weak. I was very determined to use punches on this playthrough, since kicks are severely overpowered, especially early on.
Is that all you got? That was nothing. I could do this all day. Ha 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 ha. Ow.
Now that you're playing as Johnny Slats, you continue onward doing more of the same, updating that access card and fighting nightmares. Eventually you get to an elevator where that guy from the intro to the game is there and he's like, Johnny Slater, what the bloody hell is going on here? Weren't you killed in the subway station? After a brief chat, you're shocked to find out that he is one of those nasty hybrids and not Johnny's actual boss on the surface, and he's in cahoots with the bad guys, obviously. Then his crony gives you a nice big hug from behind while he reveals he's been successful in switching the president with a clone. Johnny then, as seen here, pretty awkwardly shuffles forward out of the elevator and you enter a battle with this suit to kick his bum. You see the purple suit tapping away at some buttons and you'll see the president who's in like a tube or something.
What the hell is this? Some kind of tube?
What's funny here is there's no dialogue and he just keeps looking up at you. He doesn't say anything or do anything, it's just funny. He just looks up at you like you're distracting him from doing like a normal thing. He's like, what the hell is that? I'm like looking up behind him like, what's that noise? Can you keep it down up there?
Ah!
Obviously you give chase to Purple Suit here, and at every turn he gives you that generic arrogant villain chatter.
You're too late, you worthless human, ha ha ha.
Then eventually he's like, alright fine, I'll kill you myself then, and turns into this pretty legit looking monster. Like, I mean, he's not scary, is he? Fair play to him. But hey, even the strongest monster can be kicked in the spine. After very awkwardly picking up a memory card from his desk, you encounter one of your small friends, and he's like, this is the president, and he's halfway through having his brain turned to mush. You put that memory card in over there and let's save him. Your Gargi mate says, alright, let's go over to our base now, while Johnny's clearly not listening and just getting lost in the president's eyes for some reason. So you can have a walk around the base now that you're here. It's the only part of the game that's like this, no enemies or security systems. And everyone around you starts name dropping the Navigator, as apparently they're the only one that can power up their starship to return home, all while destroying the enemy base in the process. It's a real win-win, apparently. Unfortunately, this Navigator has been taken away by the enemy, obviously. The president has awoken from his nap and is like, g'day Johnny, let's be best mates. And he says that all this is such bad timing. It's right before the big peace agreement with Russia is about to take place. Always the way, isn't it? The Navigator is apparently imprisoned in the deepest level of the base, guarded by the most vicious black belt aliens. Off we go, I guess. I guess this is as good a time as any to mention the map. It comes in handy a couple of times, but it becomes borderline useless in some areas. Since it not only shows the level you're on, but any surrounding areas above or beneath you, it just turns into an absolute mess. I mean, look at this! We're karate fighting robots as well at this point, by the way, not just the regular, tall, wet Sesame Street characters as usual. The robots have a lot of health, so this is a good time to talk about the combo meter. So under your power meter, you'll see a few notches and some empty space. After you gain enough experience, you'll see one of the notches has a blue bar there now. If you let your power meter fill up, it'll flash, and now you've got a stored action. If you now let your power meter fill up again, you've now got 2 actions. You can use both of these at the same time to do a combo. Once you level up enough, you can store 4 actions plus 1 more with the power meter itself, letting you do a 5-hit combo. This is how you dish out the big damage numbers. In fact, if you string together the right combination of moves, you can do a special combo and it'll do an extra 6th move at the end. You have to use a very specific set of moves to get this special 6th move at the end of the combo, and someone made a very thorough video explaining how it works, which I'll link in the description, because I'm not going to get into it here. But it's pretty cool. Cool discovery. It's not really mentioned in the game anywhere that you can do this, so it's pretty sweet. After a lot of robot fighting and shooting your toy gun, you come across another boss. Only this time it's a boss fight where you have to use this diffuser pistol. No punching, no kicking, no pile drivers. This is out of nowhere and it is not a welcome change. This thing just rocks you with lasers and rockets, barely giving you a chance to react or move. Your range of motion isn't swift, to put it lightly. You have to fully stop to shoot. This is like trying to put out a house fire with a water pistol or something. Once you do finally drop him, in a very human-like fashion, he empties his bowels and a bunch of little guys fall out and chase you. The chasing part isn't human-like, just the bowel emptying part. But poop usually doesn't chase you around the room, I suppose. Anyway, moving on. The Navigator is very close, but before that, you have to kick around some legendary Pokemon, all of a sudden.
Charizard, use our middle front kick. Way to go, Charizard!
Well, there he is. He asked to be taken to the rest of the little weirdos into the ship. To do this, we have to fuse together for some reason that's not exactly explained. And that also, when they leave where they are, the underground base will have a power imbalance and start to fall apart. If only it, didn't do that. That'd be more convenient. Mr. Wicked Sense of Humour here has noticed the power to the base being all wonky and he's not super chuffed to see us. We fall into his trap and now he's got 2 of those big bastards from earlier. You can't run away this time and you've got to try to make them kill one another with their own attacks, and then make the one that survives ram into the wall enough times they fall to their death. It's annoying and shit. You finally get to actually fight this dickhead now. I haven't mentioned the items in this game yet, but this is a decent time to mention them since this guy just spams buff items on himself and then shoots the shit out of you. Not much to say on the item front really, you probably get the gist. You've got items that restore your health, buff your stats during a fight, but you've also got these guns that have elemental effects that you can use to actually shoot enemies. If you can avoid some of his shots and get close to him, you can then just wail on him. If he knocks you down, he will most likely tap you out though. You come across a girl called Anna who says she works at the White House, but oh no, it's a trap and she has a bomb that will go off if she moves. And then she pulls out a taser and zaps you, which was the actual trap, I guess. Very strange, very quick double bluff with the bomb lie. She didn't need to say that at all. It's really putting a hat on a hat here. Big Diaz reveal here. Understandably, he's a bit miffed with the whole you stealing his body thing. It's a shame the base is too on fire to fight here. He swears he'll be the one to put you down though. Yeah, no thanks, Diaz. Anyway, let's get out of here. More story reveals incoming here. You run into this Anna woman again, who is now in her real clothes and head jewel thing, and tells you to take a gander at the fetuses here. Just look at them. Since the base is falling apart, she freaks out about everything dying. She runs off to Jerry and immediately has a massive crisis about being a hybrid and not a real human and thinks you rock because you're a pure human. Jerry cheeses it, and then this Hunter fella, who's the guy that clocked you on the head way earlier in the game, pipes in via hologram and says she's a failure, and then turns to you and says, "Hey buddy, you're too late. We're heading for the surface and the invasion has begun. See you later, shithead." You and Anna start your escape, but predictably she doesn't make it. Hunter tells Jerry to stop freaking out and just get the navigator back from Johnny. No idea how they plan on doing that. I don't think they know we are now one. Jerry's like, "Alright mate, but when this is over and you and me are finished, okay?" Jerry doesn't take orders from Hunter no more. Such weird little character developments here, so quick. Like this Anna woman's like, "Yeah, check out these fetuses, what do you think of them?" And then she's like, "Oh man, I'm not a human, oh no," and she dies. And then you see Jerry, he's like, "Yay, Hunter, he's my boss." And then suddenly he's like, "Hunter, you suck, I'm not taking orders from you anymore." It's all so fast. Jerry isn't super duper happy to see you, but he's also got that jealousy of you being a real human, just like Anna did. But hey, end of the day, he needs to kill you and get the navigator. So, regardless of his weird beta male admiration of you, you're fighting. Right under the gargantuan starship no less, nice little set piece here. He's not very challenging. Alright, no more messing about. Hunter wants a word with you. It's in the ship you pop. He does that classic villain, give yourself up with no resistance and we may show mercy gimmick. The president chimes in here and says, "No way Jose, you have to save the US of A and then the world," and then fuzzes away. And then who the hell is this? This is the master slash gargantuan traitor that was mentioned before. They're very aloof about the destruction of the base because it's, there's no worries, all they need is the navigator, the starship and a couple of these big-headed fellas and they're all hunky-dory. He also mentions that he's going to nab you and make a bunch of clones of you because Johnny absolutely kicks ass, which is a pretty passive-aggressive thing to say to Hunter, who is standing right there. Hunter's like his top guy, but then Johnny walks in, he's like, "Alright Hunter, I know you're my right-hand man, but this guy right here, this guy's the real deal." It's time to throw down with Hunter. Bit of an anti-climax. I beat him in 3 minutes, and the coolest thing he did was this. Which did kick ass, but that was it. The master is like, "Oh, okay then," and he gives you a big zap. And it seems like he does have you cornered, but then...
"You're on my hit list, and you shall feel the pythons, brother!"
The president then tries to do like a little speech here about like the power of the human race or whatever, but it doesn't come off the best. So he's like, "Advanced technology doesn't matter as much as who's using it and how. Your ideas look downright half-baked to us considering the mistakes we've been repeating throughout humanity's history. Your invasion of Earth and the human race were about 2,000 years too early." Wait a second, too early? Shit. Johnny, did I say too early? I meant to say too late, implying that, us as a human race has already made similar mistakes and maybe if they came a bit...
There's no Hulkamaniacs here!
So after the president's little speech there, we actually have to fight this guy now. The fight is a little annoying since he just flies around all over the place and avoids your attacks pretty easily. You either have to get close to him while he's charging up his energy attack, or you can just shoot him a bunch and then kick him in the head as he tries to get up. That's what I did.
And I'm just kind of a little worried about locking up here. It's all right. Because we just might blow the whole planet up, you know.
After this, you meet up with your little mates and they ask you to finally restore power to the ship by putting the navigator back in his slot. Like it's a pair of car keys or something. Well, that's all done and dusted. All that's left now is to leave with the president and get rid of the clones on the surface. And then suddenly a Shin Megami Tensei game starts chasing you. Well, it's the Master again, but revealing they're actually a parasitic life form called Magoia that searches the universe for hosts to use and then take over the world. Alright, so here we go. The most annoying thing about this chocolate Blastoise is that it'll whip its tail or huff out some fire or poison smoke anytime you attack. So you have to make sure you're not standing behind or staring down the barrel of it before you lay the boots to it. As usual, shooting works too. But hey now, this was just phase 1. The second and final phase is this more human-y looking thing. While he does have some special moves like this tornado he spits at you, at least you can now grab this guy, unlike the poop turtle earlier. I hope the president is watching because at this point you were just hitting straight up EVO levels of combos on dudes. The president says, "Man, you really do rock, don't you? God, you kick ass." Anyway, let's get out of here. But oh man, I forgot about Diaz. Oh jeez. And we're playing hard to get, so the tension is unbelievable. Johnny decides the president's safety is paramount and tackles Diaz onto another platform that's going down. But that's the opposite of where you want to go, Johnny, you silly goose. So now we're fighting Diaz, and it's super intimidating how he says, while doing tiny little shin kicks. Nothing more honourable in a dramatic final duel than shooting someone in the back. Aside from maybe shooting them in the back while they're face down on the ground. Yeah, if you save your weapons up for the final stretch, you'll have a pretty easy time, all while everyone around you is saying how awesome and tough you are. So you've bested Diaz once and for all, and it looks like this is the end for Johnny too, unfortunately. All good, the president's actually a really good mate and he comes back down for you. And Johnny starts waving his arms around like, "I'm down here." And the president's like, "Yeah, I see you, mate. I'm like 2 feet away from you. Settle down." Once you're out and almost get hit by a train, the president observes that you made it and you're now above ground. I understand through the whole game people were referring to the surface as above ground, but I can't help but feel this line would have been more suited for literally anywhere except an underground subway station. No, we are not. Good lord, Johnny, it's Christmas Eve. We have to get to the woman we love, which I assume is her. The president is giving us the night off and he's like, "I can't lean on you until the very end. I'll take care of the fake president. You don't need to protect me." Just kidding. Anyway, he says we're on vacation now. President's order, and you guys hug it out, which actually rocks. It's awesome that they hug. We're past handshakes at this point. It's hugs. The ending cutscene is fully voiced, and I'm going to play this part here unedited as it is insane.
Where to?
Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's pretty far to go, ain't it?
I'm in a hurry. This way's faster than getting on a plane.
Leave it to me, man. But today's Christmas Eve. It ain't Halloween, you know.
I guess I do need to make a stop at a clothing store along the way.
I thought you were in a hurry.
We interrupt this broadcast for breaking news. An astounding event has just taken place in New York City where President Weller was scheduled to address the nation tonight. The president was on the stage when he was attacked by a man, but it turned out that the assailant was, strangely enough, none other than President Weller himself.
This is the best. Incredibly inappropriate Jamaican voice aside, I like how when the president says he'll take care of the fake president, he means that he's gonna bum rush the stage and punch him in the head. Like that was his plan. I know who's gonna be under that tree. Yep, there she is, waiting for Johnny. Her name is Holly, by the way. So this woman witnessed Johnny get shot and evaporate right in front of her very eyes, and she still goes to that tree and waits for him? It's a good thing she completely blocked that trauma out and showed up anyway, thinking it's all good, because there he is, all good.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And that's it. I actually like that very last scene. In context, it actually makes very little sense due to what I mentioned before, how she should think he's dead, but in a vacuum, it's actually pretty nice. Hybrid Heaven is my favourite Nintendo 64 game. For all its flaws, it's my number one. Why? Well, besides the nostalgia factor, I don't really know why. I know it's not like great, but I maintain that it is a good and competent game. The mixing of fighting and RPG genres was pretty ahead of its time, especially considering almost every game now mashes RPG mechanics into it. They got on that pretty early. There's just something about it that really tickles my fancy, maybe because it's just so weird. As a child, I liked two things more than anything else. That was video games, especially RPGs, and pro wrestling. And really, this game just mushed those two things together. At the end of the day, this is just a turn-based wrestling game with level ups and some bad platforming. How could I not have loved it? The reviews for this game are a bit all over the place. For example, Famitsu and EGM were pretty positive about it, whereas GameSpot gave it a scathing review. Come on, Jeff, that's a bit harsh. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, I guess, democracy, etc. Wikipedia also cites the Sydney Morning Herald as not totally loving it. Why is this on here? This newspaper based out of New South Wales, Australia, is just so weird. I'm not without any criticism here. Like, the game is clearly a bit of a mess, and the story is a bit meh to follow, and not because it's too complicated or sophisticated, but because it's just not engaging or, like, you know, good. My main complaint though is that I could really use a change of scenery every now and again. The underground base does change up its look occasionally, but it's a mostly grey, mostly metal, underground futuristic-ish looking base for the entire game. Listen, I might be the only person alive who says this is their favourite Nintendo 64 game, but by about the 3/4 point I always hit this fatigue caused by the location and aesthetics, and it just takes the wind out of my sails a bit. Nothing crazy, just, you know, maybe if you came above ground once or twice, had to do something in the city or an office building, or, you know, even a sewer section. The most reviled locale in RPGs, a sewer, would be an ironic breath of fresh air here. I'm not going to sit here and say this game is vastly underrated and that it's criminal that it's not on top 10 lists of 64 games that more people should know about, and that this is actually some hidden gem from Konami or anything like that, but I will sort of kinda say that. In terms of the relatively small library of games on the Nintendo 64, I feel it's not mentioned as much as maybe it should be, especially considering it's made by Konami, which at this point in time was basically a seal of quality. After looking online, I do see that these days the game is seen in generally a favourable light, which kicks ass, because for me, this is one of those obscure games that you love so much, but you don't have any of that weird gatekeeper energy about it that it's mine and no one else can have it. But I just want to see it appreciated, and maybe some indie developer can make a spiritual successor that's way better. I think the idea does have legs. Like if someone out there took the mechanics and just made it way more fluid and smoothed out the rough edges and made it take place anywhere else than an underground base, I think it'll be awesome. Fortunately, the game isn't too expensive either. You get the cartridge for like $50, which is a pittance compared to what most retro games sell for these days. I genuinely think the game is worth trying, because if nothing else, it's just this very strange project that Konami did, and I suppose they ultimately failed since it wasn't a financial success, there's no sequels, and no one's really talking about it anymore. But they did fail in a very, very interesting way.